The U.S.-Africa Policy Forum was being broadcast live in over 30 countries. The studio lights burned hot, the air thick with quiet tension. Leaders from both continents sat across from each other on a sleek panel, cameras zooming in, journalists screaming. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, dressed in his sharp military uniform, had just finished calmly speaking about Africa's future, sovereignty, unity, and justice. He wasn't loud, he wasn't emotional, he was precise. The studio fell silent. Then Nancy Pelosi leaned forward with a bitter half-smile and eyes sharp as blades. She said, "You sound as dumb as Africa." The words cut through the air like a blade. A few gasps escaped from the audience. Some looked down. Some leaned forward. Even the moderator blinked, stunned. The silence was unbearable. Cameras caught every frame. Social media was already exploding. Traoré didn't flinch. Not a muscle moved on his face, but his eyes didn't blink. He stared straight at her, still calm, and then slowly he reached for his mic. Everyone held their breath. What would he say? The room felt frozen in time. Ibrahim Traoré didn't raise his. He didn't even look angry. Instead, he straightened his back, adjusted the mic, and still staring into Pelosi's eyes, said quietly, "Madam Speaker, you just insulted over 1 billion people." A murmur rippled through the audience. He continued, voice firm, yet soft. "You speak of Africas, if it is a joke, but my people, their children you mock, are the same ones mining the cobalt for your phones, the same ones farming the cocoa for your chocolate, the same ones shedding blood for freedom while your cameras look away." Pelosi tried to interject, but Traoré raised his hand gently. "Let me finish," he said. The moderator said nothing. No one did. He leaned in closer. "You call us dumb, but who taught us lies? Who came to our lands with flags and left with gold? Who read stories with chains?" A tear dropped down the cheek of a young African student in the audience. She was sent alone. On Twitter, the clip was already going viral, and Captain Traoré hadn't even finished yet. By now, even Pelosi looked uneasy. Her smile had faded. Captain Traoré's words were calm, but something deeper was rising. An emotion so raw it reached beyond anger. It was truth, the kind of truth that makes people shiver. He continued, "I was born in a village with no electricity. My mother taught Memeth by candlelight. My father defending our land from those hawks. They came in peace. I watched my sister cry herself to sleep because Herdeker had left for Europe, hoping for better pay. I don't speak from books. I speak from pain." A hush swept across the studio. One American analyst wiped his glasses, shaken. "Africa is not dumb, Madam. Africa is shilling from what the world did to it, and still we rise every single day." You could hear sniffles in the crowd. Then Traoré looked to the camera, straightened all the eyes of millions watching. "Tovary, African child, watching this. Don't ever let them tell you you're less. You wear the heartbeat of the earth." Social media exploded. "Shirney speaks. Share respect Africa. But this was just the beginning. He hadn't even told the story of Wuthapan to his brother. The room still buzzed with tension. When Captain Traoré's voice softened, as if sharing a secret meant only for Thule to hear. "I want to tell you about my brother Issa," he said quietly. The studio fell completely silent, everyone leaning in. "Issa was my best friend. He was a boy full of laughter, dreams, and hope. But when the violence scene our country escalated, Issa was taken, not by enemies from outside, but by those who should have protected us." His eyes darkened. A shadow crossed his face, the calm replaced by a haunting grief. "He disappeared for months. No one knew where he was. We searched, begged, prayed. When he came back, he was a shell, broken, scared, silent. The scars in his body told a story no words could." Traoré swallowed hard. "That is the Africa you don't see on your TV, not in your newspapers. The Africa you insult is bleeding, surviving, hoping, and Issa's story is just one of millions." A few journalists wiped their eyes. Pelosi shifted uncomfortably. This was no longer a political debate. It was a human story. Traoré's voice grew steadier. "Ask you, Madame Pelosi, to imagine a loathing, a brother to silence, to fear, to injustice, to live in a place where Thuval's eyes are closed. But the pain is wide open. The studio lights seem to dim, cameras scout every second. I have met Mother Shu bury their children not in graves, but in forgotten memories. I have seen villages emptied by war and hunger, while the world moves on. He paused, his eyes locking with Pelosi's again. Yet in all this darkness, there is light, there is hope, there is courage, because we Africans refused, Tobe forgotten. Suddenly, a woman in the audience sobbed bitterly. Others reached to comfort her took a breath, then said softly, "If you think we are dumb, then why do we keep fighting when the odds are against? Why do we dream when the world outs us?" No one spoke. The air was heavy with emotion. Even Pelosi looked shaken. Thuald was watching, hearts beating with every word. Then, with a calmness that stunned everyone, Traoré leaned forward. "Madame Pelosi, I do not speak for myself. I speak for all those whose voices were silenced. I speak for Africa's children, their pain, their dreams, their courage." His voice grew strong, filled with dignity. "You called us dumb, but it is your ignorance that blinds you because you cannot see the strength it takes to rise from centuries of hardship." The camera zoomed in on Pelosi's face, her composure cracking. "I challenge you on the world to open your eyes, Tolosson, to learn, because Africa is not a place to mock. It is a place to respect." The moderator struggled to regain control. The audience was on its feet, cheering softly, tears flowing. The clip online. Millions watching, sharing, and commenting. Traoré's calm defiance was a beacon shining light on forgotten truths. The world wasn't ready for what came next. After his powerful words, the camera stayed fixed on Tro, but behind his calm eyes was a storm few could see. He wasn't just a leader. He was a man who had lost much: family, friends, and peace. Back home, the nights were filled with worry. His people faced danger daily: terrorists, hunger, poverty. Yet he carried their hopes on his shoulders like a silent warrior. He thought of his mother, who sent him off as a boy with nothing, but she believed he could change their fate. Every word he spoke was fueled by memories of those struggles, those tears. But today, he was fighting not just for Burkina Faso, but for Africa's dignity. The room was quiet, but his mind raced. Could his words change minds? Or was this just another moment that would be? He glanced at Pelosi again, then looked at Bayan, her 2 millions watching, waiting. Outside the studio, news of the insulted Traoré's response spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with support for Traoré and outrage at Pelosi's words. But in Burkina Faso, history was deeper. Families gathered around radios, eyes shining with pride and pain. Young children whispered his name as if he was a hero from their dreams. Yet the real battle was not just in words or screens. It was in the hearts of those still struggling. Traoré's phone buzzed constantly with messages from soldiers on the front lines, mothers in remote villages, friends who risked everything for change. His fight was not just political, it was personal. Every speech gave was a promise to them, to protect, to heal, to bring hope. But the road ahead was long and dangerous. After his final words, the studio fell into a heavy silence. Pelosi's lips pressed thin. Her usual confidence seemed shaken. Reporters among themselves. The moderator struggled to keep control. Outside, millions were frozen, holding their breath. What would happen next? Trop stood quietly, dignitin, wavering. He knew this moment would be remembered, not for insults or anger, but for truth and courage. And deep inside, he hoped this silence would speak louder than any shouting, because sometimes the strongest voice is the one that refuses to be drowned out behind the calm exterior. Captain Traoré carried the weight of millions. He went, just speaking for himself. He spoke for mothers in dusty villages, fathers working fields under the scorching sun, children dreaming beneath flickering lamps. Each word he uttered echoed their hopes and fears. After the forum, late at night, he sat alone in his quarters, staring out into the quiet darkness. The silence wasn't peace. It was the heavy pause before a storm. He thought about the sacrifices made by those who trusted him, the soldiers, the teachers, the farmers. Their faces flashed before him, strong yet weary. He felt their pain as if it were his own. Pelosi was not just a personal attack. It was an attack on their dignity, on their history. And now more than ever, he knew his next steps mattered because this moment was more than politics. It was a fight for respect, for justice, for Africa's soul. News of the forum spread rapidly across Burkina Faso. In a small village far from the city lights, an old woman sat near the fire with her grandchildren. She told them stories of struggle. And that man, Ibrahim, she said, carries our pain and our strength. The children listened, wide-eyed. One whispered, "Will he help us, Grandma?" She smiled through tears. "He is our voice when we cannot speak," she said softly. Meanwhile, young people in the capitale gathered around radios and phones, watching the viral clip again and again. They shared messages of pride. And for many, Traoré wasn't just a leader. He was a symbol, a living promise that Africa's story was still being written. And the insult, it only fueled their fire. But leadership came with unseen burdens. Behind closed doors, Traoré often wrestled with doubt and exhaustion, carried scars invisible to the public. Late nights spent reading letters from grieving families. Days filled with tough decisions that could cost lives. Yet every morning he rose with the same determination, because he believed in a future where no child would feel less than, where stand proud and strong. At the next meeting, reporters asked about Pelosi's words. He answered simply, "Words can hurt, but they cannot break the spirit of a people who have known hardship and still choose hope." His calm strength inspired millions, but deep down, he knew the real fight was just beginning. Days passed, but the of Pelosi's words still hung heavy in the air. Too many. It was just an to Traoré. It was a reminder of a painful history, a history too often ignored or twisted. He thought about countless Africans who had been dismissed, silenced, or misunderstood. But he also thought about the power in those moments, the chance to change the narrative. His response wasn't anger, it was dignity. He wanted the world to see real Africa, resilient, proud, full of dreams and struggles alike. As messages poured in from around the globe, Traoré read every single one. From a mother thanking him for speaking truth to a young student inspired to keep fighting, his heart swelled with hope and responsibility. This was more than a debate. It was a movement. And every word he spoke carried the weight of millions waiting. Change. In the weeks that followed, Traoré's calmness became his greatest weapon. He didn't shout down his critics. Instead, he listened. He met with leaders, activists, and everyday people. He visited schools where children dreamed big despite split classrooms. He walked through markets filled with hopeful faces. Through it all, his message was clear. Africa's future would be built on respect, education, and unity. He became a symbol not just of resistance, but of quiet, unyielding strength. His silence, in some moments, spoke louder than any outburst, because strength is always loud. Sometimes strength isn't holding your ground when everything tries to knock you down. The world couldn't look away. News channels replayed Traoré's words again and again. Social media brimmed with conversations about dignity, respect, and history. Pelosi too faced growing pressure. Many called for her to apologize, but Traoré never sought revenge. His goal was to build bridges, not walls. He knew true change started with understanding. Even those who disagreed had to reckon with the courage he showed. He became more than a leader in Burkina Faso. He became a voice for all who had ever been overlooked. And as the days turned into weeks, one thing was clear. The world had shifted and it was watching Africa in a new light. Weeks after the forum, Ibrahim Traoré rested quietly at a memorial in Ouagadougou, surrounded by flickering candles. Each flame represented a life lost, victims of conflict, hunger, and neglect. I short oct for every mother who cried for a child never coming home. But something had shifted. The world was listening now. Leaders who unsaid as missed him began to ask questions that young Africans were organizing. Inspired by his calm courage, he knew the road ahead was still full of challenges. But for the first time in a long time, hope felt real. He whispered softly to the night sky, "We carry the past, but we are rebuilding the future." And in that moment, the flame of change burned brighter than a fear. Behind every speech, every headline stood countless unseen heroes. Teachers working late into the night, by candlelight, farmers sowing seeds despite drought and fear, children dreaming beyond the boundaries set by a story. Traoré never forgot them. He spoke for them, giving voice to their silent struggles. When asked about the insult that sparked it all, he said gently, "It was never about me. It was about those who need to be seen and heard." Tears welled in the eyes of listener Sacris, the Globe. Because this wasn't just politics. It was humanity. A reminder that behind every nation story, there are real people, real dreams, real pain. The final chapter wasn't written in speeches or headlines. It was written in the quiet moments of change. Schools opening, community healing, futures brightening. Traoré stood before a crowd of young people, their eyes shining with hope. Hesmold, this is our Africa, not the one he mocked, but the one we build every day with courage, love, and strength. That crowd erupted in cheers, tears streaming down faces. His journey had inspired millions to believe in dignity and resilience. And for the first time, the world saw Africa not through older lenses of judgment, but through new eyes filled with respect and hope. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart and opened your eyes, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Drop a comment below telling us what moved you most about Captain Traoré. Your words could inspire someone else today. Together we can spread hope, respect, and change. Thank you for watching.